Good morning. Good morning. Well, this did not help. Good morning. Let's see. Ooh, when I tell you, I think I'm nearsighted. Looking this close up is a blur, like I see my face. Yeah, I need these glasses. Y'all, hold on. I need to, my glasses are filthy. I can't see you. I can't see me. Give me a second, please. Good morning. Good morning. This is my glasses cloths are upstairs, and I'm scared. Let me just breathe with me. This did not do what I needed it to do. It's gonna have to work because. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Is there a glasses cloth in there on that table? I'm sorry, y'all. I even just put a little spray on them. It's okay. It's okay. Never mind. Never mind. I'm gonna just thug it out. This is awful. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to those of you that are joining. Yes, thank you, Natasha. Please click like and share. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning to all. Good morning to everyone. This is bothering me. It is good to see you. Good morning. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Byron. Good morning, Yolanda. I don't want to go upstairs and get this cloth. I'm trying to make it work here. Good morning, Barbara. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Marilyn. Buenos dias, familia. Good morning, Daniel Warport. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Leah. Good morning, RG. Good morning, Nicole. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, Ronald. That's RG. Good morning, Jamie, and to Dana. To those of you who are on YouTube, and if you come across one of those things, can you please give it to me? Good morning to each of you. I'm glad to see you on this morning. Let me breathe for a moment. So I often talk about when I'm teaching, preaching, inviting students who, always ask the question about when to pivot, when to pivot from their prepared sermons. And I often say, it's a conversation between you and the Holy Spirit. And with the Holy Spirit inviting you to, that you'll know when you need to pivot, or when you need to stay, to not be swayed by those on social media who say things like, if you, who say things like, if you're not, if your pastor is not preaching on such and such, if they're not mentioning such and such, then get a new church, or you at the wrong place. And it is possible that I have probably foolishly and guilty of having said something like that in the past. I would not put it past my immaturity at one point in my ministry life. I would not put it past my humanity having said something like that. As I have grown, and as I have been consistent in doing this from week to week, I recognize that it just doesn't always work like that. And oftentimes we find ourselves kind of in a space of dissonance, both cognitively and spiritual dissonance, of trying to hear which way God is in the Spirit is leading us. And if those of us who do this in any regular form and in any regular way are truthful, then I am imagining we would say that we don't always hear clearly, Shay. We don't always hear quickly and or as clearly as we need to. Some would, again, wrongfully sort of speak to this as a kind of preparation, but there's nothing that really can prepare you for a pivot other than having something to pivot to, Ashe. And we pivot for many different reasons. We pivot because we consider the context. We pivot because we discern, have an overwhelming sense of discernment that says, what the community, what the collective needs now is not maybe reprimand, but a pastoral awareness, a pastoral calling in, a gathering, and a comfort. And that's where I've landed today, this morning. I was very moved by a post that Reverend Tracy Blackman made on behalf of it was somebody else's post that she shared, and there was one line in this post that took me square out, that I built an entire sermon on, got a scripture, and was like, this is it right here. This is it. Woo, this is it. Spent all day yesterday working on it, and was like, this is a trigger word though. This is, people, this is gonna send some people. And but I wouldn't have been talking about it from the perspective that many of us have grown up. And I don't know, it may come out a little bit in this pivot, it may not. However, the pivot came this morning as I was just up piddling, and just as I usually get ready and just piddling, and got up at 4, just kind of trying to listen and hear. And then I remembered on yesterday, what was on my mind and what Derek and I were talking about. And I started to think, what is it that what does the community need? Does the community need a comfort, or does the community need reprimand? We probably need both, I say. And by the community, I don't mean specifically Pink Robe Chronicles, the clearing, I could be talking about America, Shay. But in this moment, I am going to move and lean in with what I believe my spirit is sharing, and offer this ode to the mothers. Ashe. Thank you, husband. Look at that. Thank you. And offer this ode. And isn't that the thing about the spirit? No one can tell you the formula. People would try, but we can't. No one can tell you the formula. It is learning to trust the wisdom of your body enough, learning to trust your intuition enough, learning to trust the voice that is sometimes quiet and sometimes loud enough to know that you are moving in the way and on the path that you need to. If for some reason, because I think I'm buffering over here on Facebook, if for some reason this live stream on Facebook goes off, I want to invite you to just head on over to YouTube. Under Pink Robe Chronicles, you can head to YouTube and we'll be up. If you will, this morning, I want to invite you to go with me. The buffering. Something is happening. Let me even turn this way. Something is happening, friends. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. I'm going to just turn this way. I feel it. 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 It says I'm currently offline. How? Keep saying your internet connection was restored, then it goes offline. So just going over to YouTube if I'm buffering. This morning's text comes from Judges. Judges chapter 5. Judges chapter 5, verse 7. And it's just one verse. The peasantry prospered in Israel. They grew fat on plunder because you arose as a mother in Israel. The peasantry prospered in Israel. They grew fat on plunder because you arose as a mother in Israel. The peasantry prospered in Israel. They grew fat on plunder because you arose as a mother in Israel. I want to just kind of talk a little bit about or to offer an ode to the mothers. History reveals that when Black women rise, the entire community flourishes. History reveals that when Black women thrive, the entire community flourishes. Meaning, we can go back as far as we are able to document and to just give ourselves a time period. Certainly, we can go back into the history of Africans here in these Americas, and we can all begin to name names. We will name the names that are publicly known, naming those national and regional and local heroines. Those who rose up, who responded to a call, who answered the call for just practice, just way of knowing and being. We can recall names, not just we can recall names in our civic arena. We can identify names in both civil rights and Black power. We can name names within the suffragette movement. We can identify that historically, that when Black women have risen to the occasion, when Black women have put on their cape, that the entire community flourishes. We know this to be true even as a Black woman is rising to the occasion now, nationally. This, friends, is the essence of womanism. The everyday practice that centers Black women's lived experiences as valuable. One tenet of this grounded ideology, this grounded theology and or methodology, is that according to Tasha, I didn't want you to share that, but it's okay. That according to Alice Walker, the creator of this lens, womanists are only separatists when it pertains to our need to tend to ourselves for reasons of health and wellness. However, a Black woman, is concerned not only about her liberation, but the liberation of an entire just community. Last week, two well-known Black women of the African Methodist Episcopal Church transitioned from labor to reward. Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryan and Bishop E. Ann Henning Byfield. I only met each of them in passing. However, I joined the AME Church and those who love them dearly in mourning and in celebration for their lives and their ministries. As I perused social media, I read tributes long and short to each. Condolences to siblings of the body of the AME Church. I watched the first woman to be elected bishop in the AME Church, Bishop Vashti McKenzie, eulogize a sister in ministry, a sister friend, and a trailblazer under the title, Tell God Thank You. This morning, friends, what is clear to me is that the community is mourning and the elders are leaving. The Black women are making their way to the other side. Shout out to my soror, Reverend Tony Beelan, who shared a post from her son Omar Ingram about grieving. And here's a snippet of a reflection on grief that Omar and his therapist shared. Quote, "My therapist and I were having a conversation about grief and the way that it is inherently personal." He said, we don't share that this conversation revealed that we don't share the same grieving processes because we are family or know one another. We don't all cry first or laugh never. Some of us get to the joy for their peace, P-E-A-C, instantaneously, and others need a moment with their anger. Omar's words affirmed my own grief process. That when I learned of Reverend C's transition, and then Bishop Byfield's transition, I acknowledged that I was arrested, that I was just frozen, and that I didn't make any posts. I didn't know what to say. I won't say I didn't have anything to say, but it sent me somewhere. It sent me to a space where I started thinking about the mothers. And when I talked to my other sister friend in Soror, the Reverend Dr. Shonda Jones, I said, Shonda, the issue for me is that as the mothers transition, these particular mothers, what becomes more clear is that we are next. Let me run it back this way, that I am of the age and stage in life that as elders are moving on to the next realm, some of us who fit that are moving into position and or place. It makes you consider your own mortality. It makes you think about what will people say about you. It makes you think about the futility and the fragility of life. It makes you think about how one moment someone is here and how we may think that we have all of the time in the world. It makes you think. It makes you think what things are undone. It makes you think, how are you moving? And it makes you wonder, indeed, are you living the life, in the words of Parker Palmer, that wants to live in you? Friends, today, this week, we experienced great loss, but those are the names that are publicly known. Some of us lost mothers also, but you didn't know their names. Some of us lost aunties and sisters, but we didn't know their names. And so I just sensed this morning, as I was preparing to want to offer you a sermon around the topic, "Are you brave enough?" to pause that, to know that the community is in need of a comfort. And so this morning, our comfort comes from the text Judges 5:7, that the peasantry prospered in Israel and they grew fat on plunder because you arose a mother in Israel. Can I back into it a little bit more in this way, please? Just let me back into this way. Now that you have the context for the pivot, I actually preach this text as a eulogy to one of my own community mothers, Ashe. And I just want to back into this text in this way. Amen. Amen. I often lament that my own children, who are now 15 and 17, that they never will have the opportunity to know what it feels like to grow up in a community like the community that I grew up in. Our community at one time was really a place where everybody knew your name. They knew your mama's name and your grandmama's name. My community of two, of which I'm from in Pittsburgh, I'm from East Liberty, and I'm from Homestead, but the community I'm talking about this morning is Homestead. Like other boroughs that are along the Monongahela River from Pittsburgh, we live on 3 rivers. Like other cities, like other boroughs, it was tight knit. Whether folk were born there or they came there from the deep south during the Great Migration in search of work in mills and other labor jobs, once folk gathered and supported one another, they worshiped together at one of the 3 mainline churches that were there. You either went to Clark Memorial Baptist Church, Second Baptist, or Park Place. And like our parents before us, we all went to school together. Depending on your age, you either went to Homestead High School, Barrett, Franklin, the Intermediate, or Still Valley. Listen, everything happened together. Everyone's child was mothered together. And then the ish started to go left. Ronald Reagan became president, and the steel mills closed, and other industry jobs dried up. Folks turned to other means to support themselves, and our once tightly knit community started to succumb to its circumstances. For some, money got tight, and their change got strange, and marriages dissolved, and foreclosures, evictions, and repossessions became common, and families started to cave under the pressure. In certain areas, uses of certain types of controlled substances, addiction was classified as a medical condition, but in our area and in other Black communities, it was deemed a crime. Our best and brightest were taken from us. Come on, kings. They were locked up in cages as Black mothers remained trying to keep on keeping on, trying to hold it all together, trying to not give up. Instead of turning inward, they opened themselves up. Literally, they opened their homes. They opened their bedrooms up, and they let us cry ourselves to sleep when life got too heavy. They let us sit at their table, sometimes with our head in our hands, while together we recited lyrics, certain kinds of lyrics. I don't know. Maybe we were reciting "It's Like a Jungle" sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going other. But the text says that a mother rose in Israel. It was my colleagues, I believe it was Matt, who reminded me of this text in Judges. This particular passage is a song rendered by Deborah. Deborah, identified in the text as a mother in Israel, was a judge, a prophet, and a warrior. The people of Israel were a little hard-headed. They hadn't done what God instructed them to do, so they lived in places where they couldn't plant. That's a word. Let me pause. Huh. That's a word. Whew. The people of Israel were a little hard-headed. You can go back and read that in Judges 4 and 14. They hadn't done what God instructed them to do, so they lived in places where they couldn't plant. And if they couldn't plant, then they could not expect a harvest. This brought about economic hardship, and the community was in despair. They were in despair because most of the community were peasants. Peasants are those of low social status who own or rent a small piece of land or for cultivation. They were experiencing this economic hardship, which then led to social hardship. To this end, the people of Israel were exhausted from their circumstances. They were being ruled over and lived in a state of constant threat. Their community members also were in constant fear of not having enough food, not having enough water, not having enough shelter. Deborah rose up to attend to her people. I don't have any points today. You can come to your points on your own. But let me just direct you that Deborah rose up to attend to her people. Listening to the words by Dr. Tamar Bryan about her mom, Reverend Dr. C. Listening to a few of my own sister friends, sister colleagues about how Bishop Ann was so pivotal in their lives. It reminds me of a kind of rising up, a rising to the occasion. Dr. Bishop McKenzie talked about how putting a pin in patriarchy that Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryant had to, in my words, rise above the patriarchy of the system, the denominational system. And because it was so, what does this text say? Because they had not done what God told them to do, they lived in a place where they could not plant. What does it mean to be a sister? What does it mean to be a sister in a system of patriarchy? To be an innovator, to be an innovator wherein folk look at you kind of weird, because what we do know to be true is that it was Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryant, Reverend Dr. Cecilia Williams Bryant, who made it, who made people feel okay in their Africanness. What am I saying? Yeah. That she gave them, even though it is the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Ashe, I'm not coming for you, I'm just saying, but sometimes we still struggle with our Africanness, even when we are named African. Sometimes we still reach for white supremacy. How do? We still use models that were not created for us. We will still model a system after a system that has harmed us. We will still desire entry into a system that kills us. And so that is what it means symbolically to live in places where you can't plant. So here she comes. Here she comes with all of her royalty and her beauty and her love for the African diaspora, wearing her galas and not ashamed of her body, but moving, embodied with both her spirituality and her sensuality. Here she comes, this praying wonder, this intercessor. And in the words of Bishop Mackenzie, who said that, Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryant, who I only actually met once via a Zoom, said that she was the Howard Thurman of our generation. Here she comes with all of her mysticism, her ability to see beyond the naked eye. Here she comes rising up to attend to her people. I imagine that she also had a preferred spot where she could look out. Her own shade tree. In ancient Israel, judges were agents through whom God worked. One had to be called by God to be God's agent. Let me run it back. One had to be called by God to be God's agent. I submit in your hearing this morning that the mothers, that Reverend Williams Bryant and Reverend Dr. Cecilia and Bishop Ann, that they were called by God. I submit in your hearing that they were agents of God. They were agents of God. In chapter 4 of Judges, we read how Deborah sent for Barak. She needed to warn him about what was coming down the pipe for the people. And that's one characteristic of a mother. Shout out to my big brother, the Reverend Dr. David Brawley, who in enthroning the Queen Mother of St. Paul's Community Baptist Church 2 weeks ago there in Brooklyn, he talked about the role of the Queen Mother. That one of the roles of the Queen Mothers in his church is they have the ability and the authority to speak with authority and to call the pastor in, Ashe. But that is where most of our church mothers, the authority comes from. Shout out to the work of the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Townsend Jilks. You can go to her seminal text, If It Wasn't for the Women, where she has an entire section on church mothers, which I am today lifting up the church mother as a queen mother. And here it is that the queen mother has the authority to send for us. Well, I cannot speak to ever being sent for by Reverend Dr. C or by Bishop Ann. I have been sent for by those who worked with them Shout out to Mama Dr. E.T. Hari, who told me that the first women's ministry that she ever worked with was a women's ministry that had been raised by none other than the Reverend Dr. Cecilia Williams Bryant in Compton, California. My goodness, today. And so I get what it means to be sent for. To be sent for, and I imagine that those of you who were close to both of them, and if it's not them, the other mothers in your lives, because we know it's not just them, but because it has been such a jolt, such a shock to our system, I am lifting them, but certainly inviting you to place into that category those of your mothers, your community mothers, birth or other mothers who have sent for you. Those who wanted to let you know what was coming down the pipe, those who had discerned, those who had seen a call on your life, those who had been in prayer about you, those who wisdom continued to place you in the forefront of their minds, and those who greeted you and had somebody send for you. Deborah rose up to attend to her people. And she sends for Barak because she needed to tell him what was about to go down. She was trying to alert him that 12 was on the horizon. Dr. Cheryl Townsend Gilk's book is If It Wasn't for the Women. If it wasn't for the women. If it wasn't for the women. Cheryl, Cherl, Townsend Gilkes, Gilkes. She instructed Barak. She instructed him how to move, but Barak was scared. He was scared. He was scared to move, and he tells Deborah, listen, I will only move if you come with me. I will only go where you're saying I should go to do what needs to be done if you'll go with me. And let me tell you something, isn't that just like a mother? Not only will the mother rise up, not only will the mother send for you, but isn't it like the mother to actually go with you, to actually walk with you? And let that be a comfort to all of those who are mourning today, the loss of mothers, the loss of well mothers. I know that some of us have strained relationship with mothers. Some of our mothers have not been well in this lifetime. Some of them were not well enough to offer us this kind of camaraderie, this kind of wisdom, this kind of elderhood. Some of them not by their own doing. Were not able to have this kind of sight, this kind of vision, and they spent their lives attempting or looking for some kind of reconcile, some kind of wholeness. They spent their lives unable to give us the most vulnerable parts of themselves because they were in a moment or perpetual state of healing. And so I acknowledge you that there are some of you who are there, some of you who are feeling like, oh, Reverend, I don't know, because this message right here, this, my mama, I want to invite you to expand for a moment. And I'm not suggesting that what you experience is not real. As a matter of fact, I affirm it. And I say, absolutely, I agree. If this is your experience, I affirm that experience. But for a moment, I want to invite you out of victimhood. I want to invite you out of victimhood, and I want to invite you to stand outside of yourself, to expand your vision, to just think about, even if it's not been your particular lived experience, to think about what it would mean and what it has meant for the folk historically to have Black women rise so that we can flourish. I want you to think just for a few moments about maybe not your birth mama, but maybe the various Deborahs in your life. And for those for whom have had this experience, with those who have already been mentioned, I want you to hold close in your heart the ways in which they sent for you, the ways in which they told you what was going to happen, and even in your fear, they said, lo and behold, I will walk with you. Those are the characteristics of the mothers. So the text says that Deborah went up with him, because that's what they do. They gonna ride with you. They are courageous. They show up for you when no one else shows up for you. I read the testimonies of those of you who were speaking about what both of these women in ministry have meant to you. And the common thread in each of them is that they were there for you when no one else was. The common thread, I read the story of one sister who said that she was on a missions trip. And during that missions trip, that one of the reverends spoke a word into her life to tell her that it was now time for her to engage her ministry. And all of these years later, she is who she is in mission because of the word that the woman in ministry sowed into her. There were so many of these stories, so many of these moments that spoke to the way that both of these women journeyed alongside other women in ministry, opening, not just blazing the path, but walking the path alongside with them. And friends, I just want you to be comforted by that this morning. I want you to know that the steps that were blazed with you in mind. I want you to know that because they have transitioned from labor to reward does not mean that they have transitioned out of your life. That just as we read that Deborah went up with Barak, not only did they go up with you then, but they will continue to go up with you now. Deborah says, I'm going to do it. Yes. And so she goes. Listen. They send these mothers, they show up for us in ways that other people have not, that other people refuse to. They send people to put a little money on our books when we are in other kinds of situations. They send folk to ride out with us. They send folk to pray over us. They send folk to open doors for us. They send folk to close doors for us. They ride with us. So Barak heeds the direction of Deborah and secured a victory for his people. Why did he secure the victory, though, friends? I was just giving y'all a little moment. Let me see if y'all can grasp. Run to it. Barak secured the victory for his people because he listened. Because he listened. Because he listened. Because he listened to whom? Because he listened to Deborah. And the text says, because he listened, the people prospered. What exactly is a mother in Israel? What does that mean? Well, it represents the place and the office of a wise woman prophet who delivers divine oracles to resolve disputes. What again is a mother of Israel? It represents a place and an office of a wise woman prophet who delivers divine oracles to resolve disputes. My. You know, shout out to the works of Dr. Anne Marie Mingo and see the face and the name is lost on me. Dr. Rosetta, who have done this work on Black women and the civil rights movement, and then others who have done work around like Sister Comrades around Black women and the Black Power movement. And certainly the works are still being done around Black women and the Black Lives Matters movement. Listening to Black women will save your lives. It will save you trouble in the end. It will give you clarity. It will point you along the right path. Oh, but why? What's so special about Black women? Well, friends, as it comes on the social ladder, that Black women happen to be on the bottom rung. It is true what the words of Malcolm said, that we are the least protected, the least respected. It is true what Mama Zora said, that we are the mules of the world. And when you are so close to the mud, when you are actually the mud, your perspective, your view is so much clearer that we have been both the back and the bridge that many have walked over. And when we decide, because it is our decision, because we do have agency, when we decide to take out our cape, when we decide to put on our cape, and in the words of Anna Julia Cooper, we have to use our capes like we use our agency, and suggest that it is only when and where we enter that we decide what we are going to save and what we are going to let die. But thanks be to God that in this moment in the text, Deborah decides that she is not only going to walk with Barak, that she is going to share the wisdom that she sees. And I just want to invite you to consider where you'd be right now without Black women. I just want you to consider. I just want you to pause for a moment. I just want you to think about it. And you don't have to be a Black woman to make this consideration. I want you to think it through. Where would we be without Mariah Stewart, who was the first Black woman to speak before a crowd of mixed race? Where would we be without Sojourner Truth, who demanded and had us consider what it means to be a woman? Where would we be without the everyday women who get up, sun up and sun down, who are in these working class jobs? We always talking about the middle class. The middle class is this election's buzzword, but where are we talking about the poor and the working class? We always talk about what the middle class deserves, what the middle class needs, because of the belief that it is the middle class that runs the economy. It is the middle class that are the worker bees. But can I just talk about it for a minute? Can we just talk about the Black women on the ground, the Black women who work the graveyard shift, the Black women who work the graveyard shift and then they get up Sunday mornings, they put on their Sunday's best, they go into the church house, or they get up on Fridays, they put on their hijab and they go into the temple, they go into the mosque, or they get up on any day of the week, they put on their whites and they go into the Elay. These women who are always praying for us in the spirit, that are always strategizing for us in the spirit, that always see it before it happens. And can I just tell you that it is not an easy position to be in when your sight is so clear, when people begin to doubt or think that you're operating in some kind of hocus pocus, some kind of evil. But it's not that. It's simply that your lived experience has shown you. Has shown you. Has shown you. There are so many Black women who have tried to tell us and even in their attempts and the disputes they've attempted to resolve, the overwhelming weight of being both a mother, a wise woman, and a prophet can be too much to bear. Friends, I know. I know that it is extremely hard right now. I know that the wind has been knocked out of you, of us. I know that the clouds are hanging low. But here's the moral of this entire story. That when we respond to the mothers from a position of listening, yee, that when Black women rise, the entire community succeeds. That just washed over me. That just washed over me. Woo! For those who believe in the continuation of life, and we acknowledge that these goodbyes are simply see you laters. You can feel the mothers. You can sense their presence. So if I were to leave you with anything, I would say, follow their example. Rise. Rise above misogynoir. Now, this isn't a Michelle Obama go, when they go low, you go high. Because sometimes you got to go to hell and to the abyss. Sometimes you got to give people what they want to see. This is not that. I'm not, I don't sit on that moral arc at all. I never have. I never will. That's like a kind of respectability. But rise above in the sense that once, because of your wisdom, rise above the patriarchy in your systems. And that rise aboving may look like, even when you have given warning, even when you have attempted to let folk know what is about to happen, that you still may have to heed your own warning and separate yourself. Today is Fannie Lou Hamer's birthday. Well, my goodness. And there it is. And as you are remembering the lives of those Black women who have poured into you, ask yourself, what kind of Black woman are you? What kind of Black woman, what kind of brown woman are you? Do you inform for wisdom or inform to set a trap? Do you inform to have more or inform because you still want to be the only? What kind of Black woman are you? Yeah. Woo! Do you dispel the dispute only to create more? Rise up, family. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, O ancient doors, that the representative glory shall come in. And who is the representative of glory? It is the Lord strong and mighty. Mighty in battle, lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the representative of glory may come in. What shall we say unto these things? Rise. We send you forth, mothers, and we give thanks for your ascension. As you are traveling to the other side, making your way to the ancestral realm, reviewing all that you lived on this side of time, reviewing those agreements that were made, seeing the decisions that you made and the ways you made and the doors you opened and the hurt you experiences and the triumphs that you engaged and enjoyed. Listen, as you make your way, we send you forth. We send you blessings. That as you rise, we know that you will rise to meet our elder brother. Our elder brother known in many names, Jesus, Yeshua. You may have called him because of your age and stage in life. Wonderful counselor. You probably grew up hearing the elders call him the Prince of Peace, the lily of the valley, and the bright morning star. You may have known him as one who, as the elders would say, never lost a case. The ancient text says that he was the Lion of the tribe of Judah. That there is one who rises with us. There is one who makes ways for us, who shifts the regulation of our mind, who fixes our heart. We call him many things, but in this moment, I call him the liberator, the lifter of our souls, the captain of our ship. So we take pleasure in their ascension because we know that we will see her again. And this is see them again. This is not a by and by. This is not a hocus pocus. But what we know to be clear is that death is never final. And we don't know it because it's a Christian thing. We know it because it's an African thing. We know it because as long as we say their names, they never die. We know that there are multiple realms before we get to this natural one. We know it that we will see one another again, that our souls without our bodies will meet again. We know that this will not be the last time. We know that this will not be the last time. So we're going to take pleasure in this ascension. And while our hearts are wounded and still yet tender, we give thanks that they have moved from labor to reward. We give thanks for the seeds that they sowed on this season, in this realm of time, that for some of them they had an opportunity to see them harvest, that they planted in plush land, that they were obedient to the call, obedient to the wisdom that needed to be given, that they dispel the disputes. And so, friends, I just want to tell you, don't get weary in your well-doing. Don't get weary in this moment. Don't get weary. Yes, you can grieve. Yes, Yes, you can be sad, but being sad is not the same as being weary. Being weary zaps all of the life you have left in you. Being weary makes you lackadaisical. Being weary immobilizes you. Being weary causes you not to be able to move. Being weary makes you pessimistic, not optimistic. Being weary causes you not to see the glass as half full, but to see it as all empty. Being weary says there's no reason to keep going on. Being weary says, so what? I started it, but I won't finish it. Being weary makes you believe that you cannot complete it. Being weary is not the same as being sad. Don't be weary. Don't get weary in your well-doing. And in the doing, the keeping on that the women, that the mothers spoke over you to do. The text says, because in due season. Now, I know it doesn't feel like it. Transitions never do. But the revelation that is coming to me at this moment transitions usher in due seasons. Woo! Transitions usher in due seasons. Because in due season, Jesus. Somebody is getting that. Somebody is getting that like me. Don't get weary in well-doing, for in due season you will reap the harvest. The harvest only comes because seeds have been planted. And seeds have to break down and actually die in the earth before they push through. Yeah, Jesus. Woo! Transitions are a natural part of our lives. They are a natural part of our lived order. And as painful as they are, even painful for the decedent, these are the agreements we make on the other side of time, in the sacred agreement to determine what our lives will be. What is the work we will come here? What is the medicine we come here to administer to? Whew! So a transition gives way to a due season. An ode to the mothers. We thank you, mothers. Before those of you get to clamoring, no, this was not a eulogy. This was not, I'm not AME. I'm not Ashe. This was my pivot, listening to the spirits and recognizing how so many of us needed to be comforted in this moment for such great losses, yes, of the Lord's church, the body of Christ, and for the community and for Black folk, that these losses are major, and also that in this moment, in this season, how necessary it is for us to listen to Black women, that Black women show courage every single day, and using Deborah to illuminate that the men around her were unable to respond with courage. That her prophetic words had to come true for this due season. She could have been wiped out, but she wasn't. She showed courage. The nation was being oppressed and intimidated, but here was Deborah. My goodness, here was Reverend C. Here was Bishop Ann. Here was you fill in the blank. Put your own mother's name in there. Yesterday when we were at the farmer's market, my brother-in-law is receiving, he's having a portion of a patio in a building on the campus of his alma mater is being named after him because of how committed and diligent he has been in his giving to his alma mater. And so he is being honored with this a named patio. And that's a big deal for those of you in development. So shout out to my brother-in-law, my little brother Roberto Worthen Young, who will be acknowledged and honored at the University of Memphis in a few weeks. And so our family members are attending. I'm unable to attend. Myself and the girls are unable to attend. But of course, his big brother is showing up, and I shared it with my mother. And my mother was, like, you know what, I'm going. So she called, yesterday to say she got her, ticket and everything, and she'll be there. And I told Derek, I said, I think that she's so adamant in going also because now that Miss Pat, my mother-in-law, has transitioned, that she acknowledges that she and of course my sister-in-law's mother are the parental representatives, that she is the mother now, a mother, right? A community mother, and a mother was raised up in Israel. And so I got to thinking, and I said, and it's only reciprocity because Cleopatra Green Young showed up at every important rites of passage in my life, even if my mother could not be present. Cleopatra Green Young was present and accounted for and showed up every single time. Every single time. And while we were walking and just sort of reminiscing in that moment, I started to just give her honor and say her name. And I just started to say, thank you, because I called her Miss Pat. Thank you, Miss Pat, for every piece of wisdom that you gave me, even when I was unable to hear it, even when I disagreed with you in the moment. You knew that if I would just keep on living, that somehow I would have got it. And you used to say all the time, Shay, God has got such a big plan for you. The way God moves in your life, she would say, it just blows my mind. And she would say, I know that there are certain things that you want. I know that there are certain things that you cry out to God for, and certain things you don't understand, and you feel like God has just looked over you. You feel like you've been misaligned. But she would say, Miss Shay, and she called me, and then she started calling me Dr. Shay. Just keep on living. And so I offer this ode this morning to mothers like her, mothers like my own, who could see what I cannot always see, community mothers, mothers who poured into us, mothers who bore the brunt of systems and men who lacked courage, but women who wouldn't go unless the women went before them, putting themselves at danger and receiving none of the credit. This is for them. An ode to the mothers, and we thank them, and we know that as long as we say their names, that they will never die. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo. next week, y'all. I'm heading to the clearing. Let me put this here. If there If there are you who are here and you want to join us over in the clearing, we are a subscription community. This is our time when we talk back to the text, Ashe. This is our offering. We have a monthly offering. It's $30 a month to engage, to be present, an act of reciprocity. If you are interested, I have just put the link right here and invite you to come on over and to